An episode of Fear the Walking Dead lasts roughly 45 minutes, and at the time of recording, 7 episodes have aired so far this season. That's roughly 315 minutes of television, or 5¼ hours. Now 5 hours is quite a long time to tell a story. I mean, most Hollywood movies nowadays are 2.5 to 3 hours long, and they manage to tell a story from start to finish. So why is it then that in over 5 hours of screen time so far this season, Fear the Walking Dead has pretty much accomplished zero? In episode 1, our characters crash landed their plane in some unknown location, and it became clear that their main goals were fixing the plane, getting home, and also kicking Logan out of their home. But here we are 6 episodes later, and the plane still hasn't been fixed, our characters are still running around the woods in circles, and Logan hasn't even been mentioned since. The plot feels like it's barely progressed at all. Instead, all Fear the Walking Dead has done is introduce roadblock after roadblock to prevent our characters from achieving their end goal. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be a problem if, for example, our characters crash landed in an area that was actually interesting, but as it stands, I just can't wait for them to move on from this bore fest of a location. This season feels like a real bait and switch. We got this interesting villain in the first episode, only for him to completely go missing, and then the rest of it focus on a bunch of annoying kids. You'd think that after crash landing a plane, after trying to help someone they hadn't even met, our protagonist would have taken a step back and thought to themselves, hey, you know what, maybe this isn't actually that good an idea. We crashed the plane, we lost our home, Luciana got impaled, she nearly died, so maybe we should just stop doing this? But nope, instead all these things happening actually only just seems to spur our characters on even more in helping random people. Why? This doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of you eating a nut and then finding out that you had a nut allergy, so you have to go to hospital, and then you get released, and then, you know, most people in that situation would think, right, I'm quite lucky to be alive, I'm going to stay away from nuts, I'm going to have to be wary of what I eat. But oh no, not you. Instead, what you do is you go and buy some more nuts. So when someone asks you, hey, why are you eating nuts? Aren't you allergic to them? You say some cliche bullshit as your reasoning behind this, such as, I gotta eat this nut, man. This is what keeps us living. I gotta eat this nut to make up for my past. And then you eat the nut and you end up in hospital again. And that's basically what our characters in Fear the Walking Dead do. They do stupid shit, and then they use awful dialogue as their reasoning for doing said stupid shit. This set of characters doesn't learn from their mistakes. Instead, it only encourages them to do the same thing again. I mean, there's only so long you can watch a bunch of incompetent idiots getting themselves into trouble before you stop caring, and I stopped caring a long time ago. Anyway, back to discussing the actual plot, or lack of it, from this season. Now, I said in a previous review that it feels like there's a lot happening in Fear, yet nothing happening at the same time, and it's a weird phrase to use, but I completely stand by it. Subplot after subplot keeps getting introduced, but none of them get resolved. It feels like Fear is laying the groundwork for future seasons when it should be really focusing on them now. For example, the helicopter group, they were only featured this season just so people on YouTube could make videos and go, here's my theory about what the helicopter group means and how they're linked to The Walking Dead. I mean, admittedly, yeah, it is kind of cool that there is this link now between both of these shows, but what relevance do the helicopter group have on the actual main narrative of Fear itself? I don't think they have any. I mean, we haven't learned about what their motivations are, we haven't learned about what they actually do, it just feels like a waste of time. As soon as they're introduced anyway, they just disappear, and that is what's happening for a lot of characters on this show, and this disappearing act is getting very old very quickly. I mean, Logan is introduced and never seen again. We have Daniel Salazar, who returns after a season absence, goes missing again. Al, who spent much of last season separated from the group, is again separated in the first episode and goes missing for a couple of episodes again. It's just really messy storytelling. And of course, I actually think part of the reason behind this is that Fear the Walking Dead's cast has just gotten too big for its own good. I mean, look at Wendell and Sarah. These are two characters that were introduced last season who have barely been in a show at all, which begs the question, why even introduce them in the first place? And the reason they've been sidelined is because Fear just doesn't have the time to fit all these characters anymore. However, I think another reason why we keep seeing characters go missing is because I genuinely believe that the writers think this is a good technique to keep people watching. Oh, people will have to tune in to see where Daniel disappeared to again and find out what happens. The problem is, people stop caring. You know, this is okay in moderation. When you keep having characters disappear, come back, people don't care anymore. As well as featuring extremely bad writing and snail-like pacing, I also think that this season lacks any real focus. I mean, who is the main villain this season? Is it Logan? Is it the helicopter group? Is it the kids? Is it the radioactive zombies? Is it the power plant itself? I don't know. As much as I hate season 4's Martha, at least you can say from the moment she was introduced, she was always there taunting our characters and making life more difficult for them. You were always reminded that she was the real threat, whereas this season, I don't even know what the real threat is. I mentioned at the start of this video that it seems like the main objective for our characters this season is to fix their plane and go home, and this narrative has been bogged down by the following 5 subplots. The helicopter group, Dwight searching for Sherry, Daniel disappearing to wherever it is he's gone to, we've got the walkers and a nuclear reactor subplot, and the annoying kids. That's 5 subplots all happening at once, and to be honest it just feels like artificial padding that is preventing our characters from achieving their end goal. Fear the Walking Dead at this moment in time feels like an RPG where these characters are going around doing all these pointless side quests instead of getting on with the main story. Now of course I get that in fiction characters can't just go from A to B with ease, there has to be trials and obstacles for them to overcome, but Fear's subplots seem to only exist just to slow the narrative and the plot down rather than existing to enhance it. As an example, let's look at The Walking Dead seasons 7 and 8. Seasons which you know I'm not a fan of, but these seasons do tell their story better than Fear the Walking Dead has done of late. As soon as Negan killed Glenn and Abe, I think it's fair to say that our protagonist's main goal became working out a way to take down Negan. This is ultimately what they were all working towards. Yes, the protagonist still faced roadblocks and setbacks in achieving this goal. I mean, at first Rick was compliant with Negan because he was scared. Then when he plucked up the courage to fight him, he had to get all these groups together to form an army. And then when the war did start, of course, there were setbacks during the war itself. But at least these subplots and setbacks all actually felt relevant to the actual story arc that was taking down the Saviours itself. As for Fear the Walking Dead though, I mean, can someone tell me what relevance Dwight searching for Sherry has to the overall plot? Because I can't see a connection, and I'm saying this as someone who is a big Dwight fan. As bad as the Tara Bottle episode is, at least when you watched it, you could make an educated guess that Oceanside would play a part in the war, so, you know, it was relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whereas in the current season of Fear, the helicopter group, I don't really see them being relevant until at least the conflict with Logan is resolved. Now I'm sure I'm going to get some comments from people who think I'm arguing against complex stories and that everything has to be simple, but that's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, I have a tattoo from the bloody Metal Gear series on my shoulder, and that series has more twists than a contortionist playing Twister. I'm not against complex or convoluted narratives at all, instead I'm just against narratives that introduce things just because they may be relevant in 5 seasons' time. What really annoys me about the state of what Fear the Walking Dead has ended up as is that I actually quite like the season 5 premiere. I mean, yeah, it was a bit messy and it did have problems, but it was entertaining and it actually got me excited for the rest of the season. It's just that what follows has been pretty dire. And the same also goes for the season 4 premiere. I really think the episode in which Morgan turned into British long-distance runner Mo Farah and ran all the way to Texas was a bloody good episode. But then after that it just became a mess with half the story set in the present and then half of it set in the past, and then sometimes in the past you even had more flashbacks to a further past before the past. I have come to realise though that the main reason why I like both these season premieres is because they do a good job of actually moving the narrative forward. It's just that after both of these episodes, Fear takes its sweet ass time in actually having anything happen, instead dragging its plot out until something does inevitably happen in the mid-season finale. If you can't make your script fit 16 episodes, then just shorten the season. I would much rather have a smaller, condensed, much better season of Fear than a season of Fear where stuff only happens in 4 of the 16 episodes. One of the reasons why I love The Walking Dead Season 9, apart from the writing and pretty much everything else being better than Season 6, 7 and 8, is because it seriously picked up the pace. If Gimple were in charge, the Whisperers probably wouldn't have even been introduced until the end of the season. But instead, under Angela Kang, what we had was a nice wrap-up during the first 5 episodes of what happened after the war and a goodbye to Rick. Then the next 3 episodes focus on what happened after that, with the Whisperers being introduced. And then Season 9B was basically the lead up to the War of the Whisperers, and it had that, incredible pike scene, and yeah, it was a bloody good season. There was really little filler in this season at all. I mean, okay, there were 1 or 2 episodes that I didn't like, but for the most part, it was really enjoyable and things moved at a brisk pace. Fear the Walking Dead just feels like a waste of 45 minutes each week that I could better spend on a show that doesn't insult my intelligence. Obviously, I can't speak for the entire season because this is only half of it, but this half should serve as an example of how not to write and how not to pace a show. I promise you now, if that bloody plane is not fixed in next week's episode, then I'm going to get on a plane myself, fly to America and punch the showrunners in the face. Fear really needs to sort itself out in Season 5B, otherwise it's not going to last much longer at all. So there you go, that's my video covering my issues with this half a season of Fear the Walking Dead. And yeah, let me know if you agree or let me know if you disagree. And thank you very much for watching. And quick before I go, I was going to say that, the point of this video is not just to complain about things. I think people tend to forget that people critique stuff in the hope that it will improve in the future. And I think people who are negative to Fear aren't just doing it to be dicks, they're doing it because they want the show to improve and, to be as good as it was in the past. And I certainly do, because it was a really good show. And if you look at some of the stuff I mentioned today, it's just crazy how bad it's gotten. But anyway, I'll stop talking now, blabbed on for too long. Again, let me know your thoughts below. Thank you for watching and take care. Bye. And if you heard a dog barking, apologies. My neighbour's dog won't bloody shut up when I'm trying to record this morning. But anyway, right, thank you. Bye.